Hello, everyone. Welcome to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. That is our radio station. We want to thank everyone out there that listens to us faithfully. We do so appreciate you. But you are also listening to newstreamingnetwork.com, which is home of WGSN and also Going Solo Media and Going Bold Media. Today we've got a wonderful show. We're on the Going Solo Life After Relationship Loss. I am your host here today. I am Cece Shatz. I am fondly called the Doyenne of Relationship Building. I'm a divorce, dating, and a life coach. And I'm also a business mentor because as I've moved forward in my life, I've actually, gotten into this media realm. And so now I kind of go a little bit more with that. But today we're going to talk about something I feel that's quite important and something that's very, very confusing for us. As we're making that transition and we're stepping forward into our new life, mortgages, right? Our homes are such value to us, and it really is kind of our number one, our high ticket, because it's such an investment for us. Number two, it is our soul. Our home's attached to us so much. And so when we get to the point where we're making that division in divorce or relationship loss, or we're having to step forward and make that a transition into a new home, whether maybe possibly you're not necessarily going through a divorce, but you're deciding that you definitely want to go into a new home or do something. Mortgages are always so questionable. We never know all the rules and all the different things you can do and all the different angles you can have. And we worry a lot about our financing. And you know what? We've got an expert today to take over that. And he's going to help us answer some of those questions for us. Let's bring him forward. We have our elite guest here, Ken Venick. Am I pronouncing your last name right, Venick?
Perfect. Yep. Then.
Okay, wonderful. You're a CDLP and a CMPS, a lot of letters there. So we know that you know what you're doing, but you have been in the mortgage industry for about 37 years. You really make it stress-free and you make the process go smooth and efficient when it comes with regards to home loans. And there are a lot of tricks and things we don't understand about home loans. So you're going to kind of help us a little bit more with that experience today. But I want to thank you not only for being on the show here today, but also supporting our network, being an elite and stepping forward to not only help me and all of our other hosts here on the station, but also help all of our singles that are, really looking to change their lives and move forward. So thank you for that. So let's
My
talk a
pleasure.
little bit about why on earth did you get into doing mortgages? What propelled you into doing this? You're a mortgage manager.
So I've been doing mortgages since I was 22. So I'm aging myself. Um, but I kind of backed into it, not knowing anything about mortgages. But once I got involved and learned about it, I'm happy to say 37, 38 years later, there's nothing I'd rather be doing. I still love what I do. And I
Yeah.
deal with a ton of people doing all different industries, and I've yet to find an industry I'd prefer to be in.
Well, you're definitely an expert in your field. I mean, you've been doing it that long, and I know that there's a lot of tricks and things that we don't know, back end stuff that we have no idea with regards to mortgages. But let's talk a little bit about what it is when it comes to our mortgage ourselves. Like a lot of times we're very confused with regards to it because we have like a title of our home, right? And then we have our mortgage. Sometimes we can be on the title but not on the mortgage, or on the mortgage and not on the title. So explain a little bit of that for us.
So one of them's an asset, the title. One's a liability. That's the mortgage. So correct. You could, I actually had a conversation last night with husband and wife, and the one was the breadwinner because they had a couple of small kids at home, and whether or not to put them both on title, to put them both on the mortgage. So there's not a, whether somebody goes on to both or one could depend on future plans, whether one wants to do the mortgage now and then down the road they do the mortgage and maybe look to buy a second home, and the other spouse does the second home down the road. So that's a possibility. But if you're on the title, you've got the asset. If you're on the liability, you've got the debt. So you definitely do not want to be on the liability without being on the asset, because
Yeah.
then you got the worst of both worlds.
So that's very wise for those out there that are looking to, make a transition or do something different with regards to mortgage. If you're stepping forward in another relationship, you want to think about that. The mortgage is a debt and the title is an asset. So if you're going to be on the debt, you want part of that asset. So that's
Exactly.
something to keep in mind. And we don't always realize that, because they're usually one partner in a relationship that kind of handles the finance and stuff. And then there's another one that kind of handles the day-to-day type of thing. And the one the day-to-day doesn't really get all of the financial stuff. So here on our station, we try to make those aware of it. So, okay, so there is, when we're going forward and we're thinking about, we're in a relationship, right? And we're deciding now we're going to do a split. We're going to split up. So how on earth do we begin to understand what we need to do with the mortgage and with the home? So how do we start there? Like what do you tell couples when they come to you and say, okay, where do we begin this process?
There's a few things you got to take into account. Is um, obviously there's equity in the property, or hopefully there's equity in the property. Is it going to be an equal division? Did one put more money in than the others, they're going to get more money out, or so that's part of the equation. And then once that's determined, the equity piece and who's buying who out, or are they just going to sell the property and split it up? But let's say hypothetically one's buying the other one out. What are you doing with the mortgage? Are you going to refinance and pay out the spouse from that? Or are you going to try to assume the current loan? With where the rates are right now, and in the low sixes, if they've got a 3% rate, they may want to try to get the mortgage assumed, which is in a lot of cases able to happen. In some cases, it's not able to happen. So it really depends on your servicer. But then there's the buyout piece. If you're assuming the mortgage, you can't get extra cash out. So do you have the extra funds to buy out the spouse with the remaining equity? So that's where we come in to help walk them through all the ins and outs and say, all right, so maybe you can get this mortgage assumed, but then do you have the money to buy out the spouse? If
Right.
not, how do you get the money? Is it offset by other asset divisions? So there's a lot of ways to work it out. That's where, and you mentioned my the initials, yeah, CDLP is Certified Divorce Lending Professional. So we're specifically trained in helping clients navigate that piece of the buyout.
Right. So really it's just being calm, right? And just sitting down and just kind of sharing out, number one, your finances and what your goals are, what you
Right,
truly want to do. I mean, some
right,
people want to keep the home, some people want to sell the home. So I guess the very first thing you have to determine is, number one, what's the value of the home, right? And
right.
then determine on who wants to keep it and who doesn't want to keep it. And then, now, what type of, if we're going to be going forward, let's say, and we decide that we don't want to, do anything with the mortgage right now, we kind of would like to just kind of keep it the way it is, let one
Hmm.
party live in the home, and then the other party can wait a little bit because sometimes they don't want to move the children out of the home or anything like that. So they want to kind of leave the home the way it is. Is that possible to do something like that? Or do you have to make this, cut right there, this liquidation and move forward? Is there a way to kind of let this kind of take a little bit more time and then address it later in the future?
Yeah, I mean, certainly you can just leave everything in place as long as it's amicable enough where you're in agreement. Now, if you're on the mortgage and you're not the one controlling the payments, you got to be careful because the trust has to be there, because if the payments aren't made, that's going to affect your credit. But I've seen a lot of divorce settlements where they have like a 3-year window or a 2-year window to where they'll continue to make the payments on the mortgage, and one spouse is going to continue to maintain the property. And at that point, they've got, that time frame to decide what to do. Maybe the kids will be of age at that point, or for whatever reason, I've seen it because of the market conditions that they didn't want to be buying in a more expensive market. So yeah, it's really whatever the parties agree upon. But yeah, nothing has to happen imminently if both parties are in agreement to it.
Right. So if you did something like that, would you have to determine what the value is at the moment? Because if someone else is, if only one party is living in the home, maintaining the home, then they're actually putting in more, even though, if they're making the mortgage payment, they're keeping the maintenance up, they're doing all of that. The other party is just went ahead and rented another piece of property and they're going to let it ride for a little bit. So if that increases in equity, then the party that's paying for it, it seems like it's going to be a little bit upside down, but it could also decrease, right? It could
Right.
decrease and so how do you address those kind of issues?
So a lot of that's going to come in with the family law attorney,
Okay.
but we're going to help hopefully coach them through that a little bit.
Mhm.
And it's whether they want to share in the upside or share in the downside, or say, listen, I'm going to take on all the overhead and all the maintenance. So then any appreciation, I should get the benefit of that. So all that is open and and it can be negotiated out. And that's where, to your point, it's not cut and dry. Every
Mhm.
agreement, and there's no formula. Every agreement can be crafted differently. So it's really what the two parties are willing to agree to. Because sometimes maybe they say, all right, I'm going to keep it. I'll take the risk. So I want a little more equity in there. So it's all negotiation, but
Mhm.
they just, as long as both parties agree to it.
Right. So
It's not a
really,
one size fits all in every agreement.
I'm sorry.
It's not a one size fits all in every agreement.
Yeah. I really like that because you can be creative and what it tells us is that number one, life is not always what we expect it to be. And so each individual's relationship or each individual's financial situation is very different. And so it can't be a cookie cutter type of scenario. It has to be, you have to be a little bit creative. And you've had the experience that you've done that. You've really experienced it with various different individuals. And so you've had to be creative over the years and really make things happen. And so it's very important to go to someone that has that type of experience. And that's what I really want to get across to our audience today is that if you're looking at this situation, if you're looking at, maybe some sort of division of some sort, whatever it may very well be, um, yeah, you want someone that has experience that can look at it and be creative to be able to come up with different scenarios, different things you can do. Then you can go back to your attorneys, you can talk about it, you can come up with the appropriate agreements that's going to protect both parties and really carve out something that's worth it for you, right?
Right. That you couldn't have said it better myself. In a perfect scenario, we're coming into a situation where they're starting the ball rolling uh, towards the divorce or the separation, and we're working hand in hand with the family law attorney
Hmm.
because the last thing, and I've seen this happen many a time, where by the time it gets to me, the agreement's already crafted, and then we come in and we look at the situation and say, well, they're not going to qualify for what they're looking to do. So then you got to go kind of take two steps backwards, try to re-engineer the agreement to make it work, and all that is more cost
Hmm.
because the attorneys are billing at with $300 to $500 an hour, and they got to go back to the drawing board and recraft it. So the best solution is let us get up in there at the beginning. We can make our recommendations to the client, to the family law attorney, and they can then use that information to help craft the appropriate settlement agreement.
Yeah, that's great advice, because I have seen it where someone will fight and fight and fight for the home, then realize they can't afford it. They can't afford the home. And
Right.
then they're really in a pickle. And so yeah, so you want someone, like you, that kind of knows about mortgages, knows different ins and outs, different ways you can do it, whether you need to assume the mortgage or get a new mortgage, or maybe you need to be creative with the mortgage.
Right.
And you have different, I'm sure, facilities and different ways that you've done that over the years that you're able to make that happen. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
And listen, a lot of times keeping the home is not the best option.
Mm-hmm.
We're not afraid to tell somebody that a lot of times they're more thinking with their heart than with their pocketbook,
Mm-hmm.
or their wallet. And once we explain, all right, this is what it's going to look like, sometimes they realize that maybe I know I want to keep it for the kids, but maybe that's not the best solution after all. And half the time, the kids don't care.
Right, right, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, you really have to be very smart about it, because you've got, like you said at the beginning of the show, the mortgage is a debt. And so even if let's say you let it ride for a little while, right? Let's say you go ahead and let the other party live in the home, and your name is still on the mortgage, that's still a debt. And so the likelihood of you being able to go out and buy another home, you're not going to be able to do that. So you're going to have to think about
Well, there is a way.
Okay, well, that's nice to know. So tell us a
If
little bit
if
about that.
so,
Mhm.
if there's an agreement, a separation or divorce agreement that let's just say husband and wife. Let's say wife is keeping the home
Mhm.
and in the mortgage, as long as it's documented in the divorce, and then um, we can then the husband then can go out and buy another house with the proof that the wife is now obligated to pay the mortgage. Now he's still going to be on that note, so it doesn't relieve him of that obligation. But underwriting wise, with a signed divorce, that we don't have to count that payment into his debt to income ratio. So it doesn't relieve him of the liability, but for qualifying for new mortgage, it does.
Wonderful. That's wonderful news. So yeah, so here we learned something today, and this is why we want to definitely talk with Ken with regards to the mortgage, and maybe we can have better understanding of what's going to work for us individually. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about this, and maybe you can share with some stories that you've had, some experiences that you were able to actually help individuals, move from, difficult situation into something that's much better. But before we go, we want to make sure that we reach Ken. So tell us, Ken, how we can reach you.
The best way to reach me is email is ken@kenvenick.com, KenVenick.com, or my phone number is 410-598-9410.
Thank you so much for that. So we definitely want to be able to do that. So again, the website is www.ken, Ken, and the last name is Venick.com. Check out his website and make sure that you make a note of that, store it for you so that you have it for future reference if you're looking at maybe doing a mortgage. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. You guys are listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network Radio, also newsstreamingnetwork.com, home of Going Solo Media and Going Bold Media. I am Cece Shatz. It is a pleasure to be here with you today. We're on Going Solo, Life After Relationship Loss, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. This is the new streamingnetwork.com, home of Going Solo Media and Going Bold Media. This show is called Going Solo, Life After Relationship Loss, and I'm your host today, Cece Shatz. I'm fondly called the Doyenne of Relationship Building, and I want to thank you so much for listening to us each and every time. But today we are talking about mortgages, and mortgages is our house, our home, which is very attached to our heart at times, and sometimes we don't know what to do and how to go about doing it. And when we're talking about finances, it can be extremely stressful, very stressful for not only you individually, your family. And so we're talking with an expert today that knows about mortgages, knows about all the ins and outs and the different things you can do. And being creative with regards to our finances is very, very important. And he's had 37 years of experience. He's a mortgage manager himself. He navigates and helps individuals through making that transition of not only a relationship loss, but also in future. If you're looking to, move up in a home or maybe downsize in a home, maybe this is the right time, to reach out to Ken. So we have Ken Venick here with us, and his letters are CDLP and a CMPS. He knows his stuff. And the first part of the show, we did share how to get a hold of him. And you can just go to his website, and that's Ken. His last name is spelled VENICK.com. Make sure you check that out, and we'll give you that information later on. But Ken, tell us a little bit more, because we talked beginning of the show, and you gave us a lot of information about, making a division, being creative, and things like that. Is there anything that we want to make sure that we share with the audience that you've experienced in your lifetime that we want to make sure that they know about mortgages?
So one of the most important things is preserving assets. And one area I see people giving up too much of their assets is in battling after a divorce or battling during a divorce, and the amount of money it costs.
Right.
And the best quote I got from a family law attorney one time was, do you want to put your kids through college or put my kids through college?
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that hits it right on the head. And if there's one thing I can implore to clients is like, try to get past the emotional part so you can, make a good financial decision and preserve as much assets as you can. Because I've seen it where all the money is gone and they're still not divorced. And that's the last thing I want to see people do. I got a client right now. He was referred to me, and they agreed they're parting ways, and they're gonna split the equity. And not only are they not fighting over whose value we're using, I suggested, if we're gonna do the loan, that our appraisal is gonna be independent, because the appraiser does not get a value when they go out there, and we're not on either side. And they both agreed we're gonna use that value versus they each get their own value, and they're both talking to the appraiser about one side wants a low ball, the other side wants a high number and all that. And knock on wood, everything's going smooth. It's going to close next week. And, he's going to buy her out. She'll get her half of the equity, and they'll both move on. And that's a perfect scenario. Unfortunately, it's few and far between. That's what I get.
Mm-hmm.
One I just closed a couple months ago. I came into it a year earlier, and they're already a year and a half into the nasty divorce. And I don't know what they spent before I got involved, but I'm sure they both spent 30 to 40,000 after I got involved. And the final settlement was about $10,000 different than the day I started talking to them. So, they both lost a lot of money. They both had way different numbers on their values. And if they just would have used the number that we came up with initially from the appraisal, would have been done, and they could have both moved on a year earlier. But it just got ugly, and one side was reasonable, the other side wasn't. And unfortunately, it's hard when you got one party that's not reasonable.
Right.
Yeah, so I try to implore on both sides. The more you can try to find a happy middle ground, the more money you're both going to save. Even and I think kind of in business as well and personal,
Mhm.
if both sides walk away unhappy, a little unhappy, then it's probably a fair settlement.
Mhm.
Um, and that's kind of what I've, from my experience, where I've seen it, where if both sides give up a little bit, then they're really going to make more because that $300 to $500 an hour billable
Mhm.
adds up very quickly.
Right. Right. Well, numbers don't lie, right?
Right.
So, I mean, you might be dealing with the emotional part of it, and we're dealing with our homes, and so we do tend to get emotional with that when we're, at a loss here with a relationship. We sometimes, get in the, you know, with regards to that, the emotional part of that. But when it comes right down to it, it's the same, like you said. It's like, you can't go and get an appraisal that's lowballed. I mean, that's not going to be
Right.
unrealistic. And people are, and the judge realizes that. They know when something's being unrealistic. So the better thing to do is just get an independent party to do the appraisal and get it, that's professional, that does this for a living. And you get the appraisal and go to a professional like yourself and knock out the numbers, go through the numbers and just see what they are and see how you can make it work, because numbers do not lie. You can get emotional all you want, but the house is only worth what it's worth, and you can
Right.
only get a mortgage on it for what you can. And then you've got to look at your credit and things like that. So we haven't talked about that. Let's talk a little bit about credit, because that is really something that affects a lot of people. And I know there for a while we were having a lot of homes that were going into foreclosure, and various different things like that. So, and I know we could do a whole nother show about
Right.
credit.
Yep.
I know that we can do, but let's just touch on it just briefly and give people, maybe the sense that, they can move forward even if they're struggling a little bit with their finances. So let's
Right.
talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, you're right. We could do a whole 2 hour segment just on credit, but I'll try to
Yeah.
do it real quick. One
Mhm.
thing I implore to everybody is don't stop paying the bills. I don't care whose bill it is. Keep track of it. It'll get worked out
Mhm.
during the divorce negotiation. But the worst thing that can possibly happen is where they really, get into, well, that's not my bill, I'm not paying it, or what have you. And then they destroy the credit, because credit is always fixable, but the more problems you have with it, the longer it's going to take.
Mhm.
So it's much easier to keep it good and then work out the numbers later. But if you're in a position where credit did take a hit, you can certainly get it fixed. It takes time. And I'm always coaching people through how to rebuild credit.
Mhm.
So whether it was a bankruptcy that was filed, or charge offs, or late payments, there's always ways to rebuild it. And the worse the credit gets, the longer it takes to rebuild, but it's never a lost cause. But the more we can do to help people keep the credit clean,
Mhm.
um, even in a nasty divorce, the better off they are. Because if they stop paying the bills, it's just going to make that settlement that much harder.
Mhm. Yeah, that's great advice. And I love that what you said. It's like, you can have credit, up and down and whatever, and it's always fixable. It's
Right,
always, you can fix it. So don't give up. If you
right,
feel like you're out there and you feel like you're on the other side of it, and you don't know whether you can ever buy a home again or do whatever. your credit can be fixed, and you can go, go to Ken and tell him about it, and then maybe he can refer, how to go about fixing your credit. Go, because there are specialists that help you with that too, so you can get those kind of things done. So yeah, I think that's great advice. Now, let me ask you, Ken, is there any particular area that you work in? I mean, as far as like, is there a particular state or anything like that that we have to be aware of?
No, I'm based out of Maryland. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland,
Mhm,
but I lend nationwide.
mhm,
So currently got transactions, working in about 8 or 9 states. So because of all my business is referral and client, and most of my business comes from financial advisors, CPAs, family law attorneys, realtors.
mhm.
But the financial advisors, CPAs have clients all over the country. So it doesn't matter what state they're in.
Very good. Well, that's really good to know, because then you can go. It's nationwide. So if you're
Yeah,
out there listening and you wonder, okay, Ken can't help me because I'm, you know, in California or whatever. Don't think that. Just reach out to him and see if he can help you. If he can't help you, he will definitely tell you, and he will refer you to maybe someone that can. And that's
right,
uh, and that's a great thing, is to be able to be referred by someone that's an expert in their field. So they're not going to steer you wrong, right? They're going to make sure that
right.
they get the right person for you. And so we're going through a lot when we're going through a relationship loss of whatever it is, whether it be by death or by divorce. And so we're going through a lot of emotional times right there. And then being able to, talk to someone regarding our mortgage, our home, trying to figure out the things that are really good for us and not good for us. It's really great to have someone like Ken to be able to have had, 37 plus years in this field, that certainly can walk you through to help you make the right decisions for you and your family of what it is that you do want to do. So we're going to have to close the show here shortly, but are there any last words or any particular thing you can think of that we need to maybe touch on this show? We can always have you come back again, talk
Yeah.
more in depth on credit or whatever.
I mean, obviously, credit can be a show in and of itself. But whether they're first-time home buyers, somebody's looking to refinance, we do a lot of reverse mortgages. Gray divorce is becoming, unfortunately, a bigger and bigger um, thing out there. And sometimes a reverse mortgage is a good tool, where they don't want to take on a monthly payment, and it's a way to buy out a spouse or to buy a new property. So reverse can be a whole nother topic as well. So
Oh yeah, yeah.
anything real estate related,
Mhm.
and even if it's questions, always happy to chat with folks. And if it's something we can do, great. If it's just if it's just real estate questions, they need a referral to a real estate professional or a CPA or a financial advisor. There's financial advisors that there's their sole business is working in the divorce field. They're
Mhm.
called CDFA, Certified Divorce Financial Analyst, and I'm
Wow.
always referring them out as well.
Yeah, that's very good. Yeah, and I'd love to be able to talk a little bit more about the reverse mortgage, because I know that a lot of us, baby boomers, are now having family members that we're taking care of, and they've been in their homes. A lot of them have been in their homes for a long time, and then you've got all this additional care and whatever. Maybe even a reverse mortgage might even be the answer with regards to something like that. I know
Right.
my good friend had did that. Her daughter had suggested it, and it really helped her being able to live comfortably in her home for many years before she then did pass away. But yeah, so I mean, those are things that we never think about, and when we have someone like you that is an expert, knowing all these ins and outs and different things that we can do, and you're creative with regards to what is good for not only our ourselves but our families. It's great. It's being able to have a professional that we can actually turn to ask those questions. So
Well,
yeah,
people don't know what they don't know,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that's
absolutely.
where we come in to to educate them.
Yeah, and we find, unfortunately, we find out on the hot seat, don't we? We got to find
Right.
out something quick, and how do we go about doing that? And so we want to make sure you guys know that Ken is actually one of our elites, and he's also on our directory. So if you guys want to reach out to him on the directory too, you can do that. His information is there for you too. So make sure that that you reach out to him if you've got a question about anything to do with the mortgage, and he can definitely lead you down the path that needs to go, because there's all kinds of different instruments. We didn't even get into that. There's all kinds of different kinds of mortgages that we didn't even touch on. So yeah, we'll definitely have to bring you back. So let's tell everybody how to get a hold of you.
So my email is ken@kenvenick.com. Website is www.kenvenick.com. And my cell number is 410-598-9410. I have a landline, but it forwards to my cell, so I just give my cell number out. And you know, it doesn't have to be business hours. I get calls at all times. If I'm available, I'll pick it up.
Okay. Yeah. And if he doesn't answer, leave a message and he'll definitely call you back. So don't worry about that. Yeah. And just reach out to him. Again, his last name is spelled Venick. So that's Ken, KenVenick.com is his website. So you can reach out to him there too if you want to. He's available to you. So don't hesitate asking any questions that you might have, because you never know. He might come up with something that's very creative that might be really great for you and your family. So, you know, when it comes to mortgages and things like that, we really need to go to an expert. We just can't call, you can't Google and just find something. You really need to find an expert that knows what they're doing, what they're talking about, and what's going to help you, because we have to look at not only today when we look at our mortgage, we have to look at tomorrow and how that's going to suit us. And maybe we not need to evaluate that as we go along, you know, to making sure that that it's fitting our needs and that we're saving money and we're doing all the things we need to do. Because, you know, we could refinance, we could do various different things. So it is it's a great way to be able to talk to Ken and figure out what is going to work for you and your family. So thank you so much, Ken. I appreciate you being on
Thanks
the
for having
show.
me. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, we come up with all these different angles and different ideas of things that we can talk about on the next show. So I'm
Right.
looking forward to that. So thank you so
Have a
much.
great,
I appreciate you.
have a
All
great
right,
day.
everyone. So, you know, if you need to reach me, all you have to do is go to goingsolonetwork@gmail.com and send me an email. I answer all my emails personally. They come directly to me. No one sees them. So you're more than happy to, I'm more than happy to have you send me an email. You can go to my website, which is goingsolonetwork.com. You can join us there. We have a community of individuals. If you want to do join us and do some fun things, we can do that too. But we do want to thank you so much for listening on the show here today, which is Going Solo Life After Relationship Loss. And you're listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network Radio, News Streaming Network. .com, home of Going Solo and Going Bold. I am Cece Shatz, fondly called the Doyenne of Relationship Building. I want to thank you for that, and I want to thank you for listening to us each and every time. You are a blessing. Talk to you later. Bye, everyone.